On the 52nd floor of the Aurora Group building, city lights reflected against cold glass walls. Daniel Hayes, an ordinary IT engineer, stood before a conference table where Victoria Hale, the youngest billionaire in tech, looked at him like a number about to be deleted from the system. No shouting, no begging. When fired, simply for not being willing to sacrifice personal life, Daniel said only one sentence that silenced the room. And 3 days later, that sentence forced a billionaire to confront the greatest emptiness of her life. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Daniel Hayes stepped onto the executive floor, worn laptop bag over his shoulder. Security had called 20 minutes ago. No explanation. Just Miss Hale wants to see you immediately. In 6 months at Aurora Group, he'd never been above the 12th floor. Now he stood where the carpet was too thick and the silence too complete. Mr. Hayes. A woman gestured toward glass doors. She's waiting. The conference room stretched before him. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan below. At the far end of a table that could seat 20, Victoria Hale sat alone. She didn't look up. At 33, she looked like her magazine covers, hair pulled back with precision. Navy suit, eyes that evaluated everything with cold efficiency. Daniel sat. Victoria tapped her tablet deliberately. When she finally looked up, her expression revealed nothing. "Do you know why you're here?" "No?" One eyebrow lifted. "You can't think of a single reason?" Daniel's mind scrolled through 6 months. Projects completed. Code reviews passed. No complaints. "I honestly can't." "That's interesting." Victoria leaned back. "I've been reviewing your file. Your work is adequate, sometimes even good. But there's a pattern that concerns me." She turned the tablet toward him. A spreadsheet, timestamps, dates, badge swipes. "You arrive at 8:30, leave at 5:25, every single day." Her finger traced down. 6 months, not one deviation. Daniel waited. Weekend logins? 0. Evening work? 0. Optional training at 6 p.m.? "You've declined every session." "I complete my assigned work." "That's not what I asked." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Why aren't you doing more? Why treat this like a job instead of a career?" The question hung between them. Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. "May I speak plainly?" "Please. I have a son, Lucas. He's 6. I pick him up at 5:30 every day." Victoria's expression didn't change. "And his mother?" "There is no mother. Not anymore." A pause. Brief. Calculated. "I see." Victoria set down the tablet. "And you believe that's relevant to your employment here?" Daniel chose his words carefully. "I believe I was hired to do a job. I do that job well. My performance reviews have been positive. My code quality scores are in the top 15%. I've never missed a deadline." "All true." Victoria stood, walking to the window. She spoke to the glass. "But Aurora doesn't succeed by having employees who do the minimum. We succeed because people here understand that excellence requires sacrifice. With respect, I don't think leaving at 5:30 is doing the minimum." "No?" She turned. "Then what would you call refusing every opportunity to expand your skills? To network? To demonstrate commitment that leads to advancement? I'd call it being a present father." The words came out steady, firm. Victoria walked back, heels clicking against marble. "Mr. Hayes, I'm going to be direct. The people who thrive here, who build careers, who change industries, who matter. They understand. Success has a cost. They make sacrifices. They prioritize. I do prioritize your son over your career." Every single time, something flickered across Victoria's face. Too quick to read. She sat, folded her hands with precision. "Let me tell you what I see. I see someone with potential who refuses to realize it. I see talent wasted on routine maintenance because you won't invest the extra hours that separate good from exceptional. I see a father who thinks he's doing the right thing, but who's actually teaching his son that mediocrity is acceptable. Daniel felt heat rise. He pushed it down. I see a son who has a father who's there, he said quietly. That's not mediocrity. That's everything. And when he's older, when he asks why his father never achieved anything significant, why you stayed in the same position year after year while others advanced, what will you tell him? I'll tell him I was there, for every dinner, every bedtime story, every scraped knee and bad dream. I'll tell him he was more important than any promotion. Victoria studied him. You really believe that? I know that. She picked up the tablet again, swiped through screens. Your son has asthma. Daniel went still. How do you... Your insurance claims. 3 emergency visits in the last year. Severe attacks. 1 required overnight observation. She looked up. That's expensive. Even with insurance. We manage. Barely. Not cruel, just factual. Your savings account is minimal. You rent a 1-bedroom in Queens. You drive a 12-year-old sedan. 1 major expense and you're underwater. That's private. No. It's relevant. Victoria set down the tablet. Because I'm about to make a decision about your future here, and I need you to understand the full picture. You're choosing to limit yourself professionally while simultaneously putting your family in a precarious financial position. That's not noble. It's irresponsible. Daniel's hands tightened on the armrests. What are you saying? I'm saying that Aurora Group needs people who are all in, who understand that the work we do here requires more than 40 hours a week and perfect work-life balance. We're building technology that changes lives. That requires dedication, obsession, even. And I can't do that as a single father. You can't do that as someone who's already chosen something else as their priority. Victoria opened a folder, real paper, as if the weight of it mattered. She slid a single sheet across the table. This is your termination notice, effective immediately. HR will process your final paycheck. You'll receive 2 weeks severance and continuation of benefits for 30 days. The words didn't land at first. They hovered somewhere above Daniel's comprehension, too impossible to be real. You're firing me. I'm ending a professional relationship that isn't working for either of us. Because I pick up my son from school. Because you're not willing to do what's necessary to succeed here. Victoria's voice remained level, clinical. I need people who can adapt, who can stay late when a crisis hits, who can travel to conferences, who can be flexible. I've never said no to a project, but you've said no to growth. You've said no to development. You've said no to the very culture that makes Aurora Group what it is. But this isn't the right fit. Daniel stood too. His legs felt strange, distant. My son's insurance. His asthma medication alone costs. You'll have 30 days to find other coverage. I suggest you start looking immediately. There's nothing I can do? Nothing I can change? Victoria looked at him with something that might have been pity or disappointment. You made your choice when you decided your personal life was more important than your professional one. That choice has consequences. It wasn't a choice. It's my son. Exactly. She turned back to the window. You're dismissed, Mr. Hayes. Daniel stood there for a moment. 3 seconds. 5. The entire city stretched out beyond the glass, millions of people making millions of decisions, most of them convinced they were right. He could argue. He could threaten legal action. He could break down. He could rage at the unfairness of a system that punished fathers for being present. He did none of those things. I understand, he said quietly. Victoria didn't turn around. Daniel picked up his bag, walked toward the door. His hand touched the handle. Then he stopped, not dramatically, not with the energy of someone preparing a speech, just a pause, a man who'd realized something needed to be said. "Miss Hale," she glanced back, annoyed. "Yes, I know my worth. I know I'm a good engineer. I know I'm reliable and skilled and valuable to any team that hires me." His voice was calm, certain. "I can lose this job. I can find another one, but I can't lose my son. I can't get back the years I miss. I can't undo the damage of choosing a corporation over a child." Victoria's expression didn't change. "You're right that I made a choice," Daniel continued. "Every single day, I choose him. And I'll make that choice tomorrow and the day after and every day for the rest of my life. Because at the end of all this, at the end of the meetings and the projects and the performance reviews, what matters isn't how many hours I logged or how high I climbed." He adjusted his bag on his shoulder. "What matters is whether I was there when it counted." The room was silent. Daniel took a breath. "I feel sorry for you, Miss Hale, because I don't think anyone's ever chosen you over their ambition. And I think that's the loneliest thing in the world." He left. The door closed behind him with a whisper. Victoria stood frozen at the window. The city lights blurred slightly. She blinked. The blur remained. For the first time in 15 years, she felt something crack inside the perfect armor she'd built. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. Daniel stood alone, watching floor numbers descend. His reflection stared back mid-30s, brown hair needing cutting, eyes older than they should be. Fired. The doors opened on the 12th floor. Marcus from database looked up. "Upstairs." Daniel's voice sounded normal. "I need a box." "What?" "For my desk, to clear it out." Word traveled fast. By the time Daniel reached his cubicle, 3 people had stopped him. Yes, it was unexpected. No, he couldn't talk about it. Yes, he'd be fine. He wasn't sure about that last one. His desk looked the same as 30 minutes ago. Coffee mug from Lucas World's Best Dad in crooked handwriting. A spider plant. Photograph of Lucas on the first day of school, gap-toothed and proud. Daniel picked up the frame, studied his son's face. Worth it. Sarah from QA appeared. "Daniel, what happened?" "Not a good fit, apparently." "That's insane. You're one of the best engineers here." He looked at her. Sarah had 3 kids. She understood single parenting, the constant calculation of hours and presence. "I'm okay," he said, and meant it. The box filled slowly. 6 months of work, lunch container, earbuds, USB drives. Marcus returned with security. Protocol. They watched him pack. He carried the box through the office. Past the break room. Past the conference room. Past all the spaces where he'd been good enough. Just not all in enough. The subway home was packed. Rush hour. Daniel stood with his box, watching people stare at phones, lost in private worlds. His apartment building looked the same. Mrs. Chen from 3B waved. "Early today." Something like that. "Lucas is at the Morgans, playing with Tommy." He climbed the stairs. The lock stuck. The hinges squeaked. Afternoon light made everything look smaller. 1 bedroom. Lucas got it. Daniel slept on a pullout. Not ideal. But the school district was good. The rent manageable. Daniel set the box down. Looked around. Fired. He'd have to tell Lucas. Explain that Daddy lost his job, but everything would be okay. See worry cross his son's face before forcing confidence. His phone buzzed. Text from Rachel Morgan. "Boys having fun. Pizza okay for dinner?" "Join us?" Daniel typed. "Thanks. That would be great." 2 hours before pickup. 2 hours to figure out how to explain that choosing Lucas had cost them everything. Friday afternoon. Daniel sat in the public library using free Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. 7 tabs open. Company websites. Job boards. LinkedIn. The same process repeated. Fill in experience. Upload resume. Write cover letter. Submit into the void. 3 days since the firing. 3 days of telling Lucas daddy's taking a break while his son showed concern too mature for 6. The severance gave them breathing room. 1 month, maybe 2. His phone rang. Unknown number. This is Daniel. Mr. Hayes. Grace Miller from Aurora Group HR. Daniel's hand tightened. Yes, Miss Hale would like to meet with you. Are you available this afternoon? A dozen responses fought for space. 3 o'clock. Same conference room. Can you tell me what this is about? Miss Hale will explain. Will you be there? Daniel looked at his laptop. The application. Section 6 of 8. I'll be there. Excellent. Security will have your name. She hung up. Why would Victoria want to see him? The question followed him through the subway. Up the elevator. Across the executive floor. Same conference room. Same view. Same distance between them, but Victoria looked different. Not disheveled, she'd never allow that. But something had slipped, her hair less severe, collar open 1 extra button, small changes suggesting something fundamental had shifted. Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming. I wasn't sure I had a choice. A slight tilt of her head, almost a smile. You always have a choice. Please, sit. Daniel sat. Victoria didn't reach for her tablet. She just looked at him. Direct, uncomfortably long. I need to tell you something, she said finally. And I need you to listen before you respond. All right? The reason I fired you wasn't about your performance. Or your schedule. She paused. It was a test. Daniel felt something cold flood his chest. What? A test. I've been running them for the last year. Identifying employees who maintain strong boundaries between work and personal life. Then creating scenarios to see how they respond under pressure. Who breaks? Who compromises their values? Who you can manipulate? Daniel's voice was flat, hard. Who demonstrates the kind of character that can't be measured in performance reviews? Victoria's expression didn't change. You weren't the first. You won't be the last. But you're the only one who responded the way you did. Daniel stood up. Slowly, carefully. As if sudden movement might break something fundamental. You tested me, not a question. A confirmation of something too absurd to be real. You fired me, you took away my income, my son's insurance, our stability as an experiment. As an evaluation, you played with my life. Daniel's hands were shaking. He pressed them against the table. You played with my son's life. To prove what? Exactly? Victoria stood as well. To understand what matters to people when everything is on the line. To see who has principles and who just has positions they're willing to abandon when it's inconvenient. That's not your right. The words came out low. Dangerous. You don't get to test people like that. You don't get to create crises to satisfy your curiosity about human nature. I'm the CEO. This is my company. No. Daniel stepped back from the table. You're a person with power who forgot what it means to not have any. You're someone so disconnected from consequence that you think other people's stability is a game. That's not. Do you know what I did after you fired me? Daniel didn't wait for an answer. I went home. I picked up my son. I told him everything would be okay, even though I wasn't sure it would be. I held him while he cried because kids understand fear even when you try to hide it. I called my neighbor and asked if she could watch him extra hours so I could job hunt. I canceled our internet to save $40 a month. I looked at Lucas's inhaler prescription and calculated how many refills I could afford before I'd have to choose between medication and rent. Victoria's expression cracked, just slightly. And you were watching, Daniel continued, taking notes, measuring my response, checking some box on your evaluation form. My actual life, my son's actual well-being reduced to data points in whatever theory you're testing. You're right. Her voice was quiet. What? You're right. About all of it. Victoria looked down at her hands. What I did was wrong, unethical, cruel. I knew that even while I was doing it, but I convinced myself it was justified because the information was valuable, because understanding character under pressure matters in leadership. Because? Because you could. Daniel's anger was fading into something else. Something that looked like pity. Because no one stops you. Because you're the billionaire and we're all just pieces in whatever game you're playing. The admission hung in the air. Victoria walked to the window, stared out at the city. My father worked for Mercer Industries. You wouldn't know it, they went bankrupt in 2009. He was a VP, devoted 40 years to that company, missed every school play, every holiday, every milestone. Told us it was worth it because he was building something, providing. She pressed one hand against the glass. He died at his desk. Massive heart attack. 3 months before retirement. I was 14. Found him when I brought him lunch he'd forgotten to eat. Again. Daniel didn't move. I built Aurora Group on a promise, Victoria continued, that I'd never be like him, never sacrifice everything for work, never miss what matters. She turned. Her eyes were red, but somewhere along the way, I became exactly what I hated. I just did it from the other side of the desk. Why are you telling me this? Because you said something that's been eating at me for 3 days. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. You said no one had ever chosen me over their ambition. And you were right. Not my father. Not my mother, who stayed married to her career more than to him. Not any of the people I've dated, who saw the wealth and the status, but never the person. Everyone in my life has always wanted something from me. Position, money, access, connection. She sat down, suddenly, as if her legs wouldn't hold her. But you didn't, she said quietly. You didn't try to leverage the situation, didn't threaten to sue or go public or destroy my reputation. You just left. Chose your son, walked away from someone who had power over you and didn't look back, because he's more important. I know. That's what broke me. Victoria looked up at him. I've spent 15 years building an empire, accumulating wealth, earning recognition, and in 3 seconds, you made me see how empty it all is. How I've optimized for everything except the only thing that matters. Daniel sat back down. Not because he trusted her, not because he forgave her, but because something in her collapse felt real. What do you want from me? He asked. I want to make it right. You can't unmake the last 3 days. No, but I can admit I was wrong. I can offer you your job back, with a raise, with guaranteed flexible hours and protected family time. Victoria pulled out a folder, pushed it across. I want to offer you something else, too. Daniel didn't touch it. A position, Victoria continued, senior culture advisor. You'd work with me to reshape how Aurora thinks about work-life balance. Real balance, not the performative kind in recruitment materials. You'd have authority to challenge managers, to audit practices, to help me build the company I should have built from the beginning. Why would I want to work for someone who tested me like that? Because I'm offering you the power to make sure it never happens again. To anyone. Victoria leaned forward. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to hold me accountable, to be the voice that tells me when I'm wrong, the person who keeps Aurora from becoming another Mercer Industries. Daniel opened the folder. The offer was generous, almost suspiciously so. The salary is fair. For someone who'll have the courage to tell a CEO the truth. Victoria's expression was steady, determined. I've had vice presidents who couldn't do what you did, who folded the moment I applied pressure. That's because they needed the job. And you didn't? I needed it just as badly. I just wasn't willing to become someone else to keep it. Daniel looked at the papers. If I say yes, and that's a massive if I have conditions, name them. No more tests. Not on me. Not on anyone. You want to evaluate character? Do it through actual performance and feedback, not manufactured crises. Agreed. I still leave at 5:30. Every day. No exceptions unless there's genuine emergency that only I can handle. Agreed. And you, Daniel, met her eyes. You have to actually change. Not just policy. Personally. If you're asking me to build a different culture, you have to model it. Take time off. Have a life outside this building. Stop wearing workaholism like a badge of honor. Victoria flinched. That's the deal. You want me to reshape Aurora? Fine. But you're the first person who needs reshaping. The room fell silent. Victoria stood, walked to the window. Okay, she said finally. Okay? Okay. I'll try. She turned back. I don't know if I can do it. I've been this person for so long. But I'll try. Daniel stood too. I need to think about this. Of course. And I need to talk to my son. He's the one who will be affected if I come back. Take all the time you need. Daniel walked to the door. Stopped. Victoria, please. Victoria. The name felt strange. Why did my response matter so much? Out of everyone you tested, why was I the one who made you question everything? She smiled. Sad. Real. Because you were calm. Everyone else either raged or begged or tried to negotiate, but you just accepted it. Not with defeat, with certainty, like you knew exactly who you were and what mattered, and my opinion couldn't touch that. She paused. I've spent my entire life trying to prove my worth to the world, and you already knew yours. That's what I didn't have. 2 weeks later, Daniel walked back into Aurora Group. Not to the 12th floor. To the 52nd. His new office had the same view. Same floor-to-ceiling windows. Same sense of the city spreading out like a promise. Grace from HR had sent the contract 3 days ago. Daniel's lawyer, a friend from college, had been shocked. This is the most employee-friendly executive contract I've ever seen. Just honesty, Daniel had replied. His first day back was strange. People stared. Word had spread, fired, then rehired into senior leadership. The rumors were creative. His first meeting was with department heads. 15 people around a table, wondering why an IT engineer was evaluating their practices. Victoria opened the meeting. This is Daniel Hayes, our new senior culture advisor. He has full authority to review any department, interview any employee, and make recommendations directly to me. Those recommendations will be implemented unless there's a compelling legal or financial reason not to. A man in an expensive suit, Mark, VP of Engineering, raised his hand. What qualifies Mr. Hayes for this position? He told me no, Victoria said simply. In a building full of people who say yes to everything, he had the integrity to say no. That's the qualification. Over the next 3 months, Daniel did something unusual. He listened. He sat in meetings, ate lunch in the cafeteria, talked to people at coffee machines and elevators. He asked questions. Simple ones. How are you? What's working? What's not? What would you change? The answers formed a pattern. People were exhausted, afraid, caught between needing income and desiring life. They worked late because everyone worked late. They skipped vacations because taking time felt like falling behind. They missed their children's events and their own anniversaries because the culture demanded it. Daniel compiled his findings. 60 pages, no jargon. Just data and stories and the clear conclusion that Aurora was destroying people while calling it excellence. He presented it to Victoria on a Wednesday. She read in silence. Absorbed each page like a blow. This is worse than I thought. How do we fix it? Start with you. Victoria blinked. What? The culture comes from the top. If you're sending emails at midnight, everyone thinks they need to be available. If you never take vacation, no one else feels they can. Daniel pulled out another document. I made you a schedule. A schedule. For the next 3 months. Mandatory departure by 6 p.m. unless there's genuine emergency. One weekend day completely disconnected. One full week vacation within 60 days. Regular appointments with a therapist specializing in work-life balance. Victoria stared like it was written in a foreign language. I can't. You agreed. You want to change Aurora? This is how. Daniel, I run a billion-dollar company. Victoria. He used her first name deliberately. You're not the only person here who can make decisions. You have talented people. Trust them, or admit you built a company where everything depends on one person and that's a structural failure. She looked away. Looked back. It feels uncomfortable. There's a difference. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Victoria nodded. Once. Sharp. Okay, let's try. The Aurora Group newsletter came out on a Friday in March. Company named Best Workplace for Parents by National Family Council. For the second year running, Aurora Group has received top honors for family-friendly policies, including flexible scheduling, protected family time, and a culture that values presence over performance theater. In a statement, CEO Victoria Hale said, "We used to measure success by hours logged. Now we measure it by quality of life. It turns out happy people do better work. Who knew?" Daniel smiled, reading it on his phone while sitting in Lucas's school gymnasium. Second grade spring concert. Lucas was in the back row of the chorus, wearing a shirt that was already too small. He'd grown 4 inches in the last year. Lost 3 more teeth. Developed an inexplicable obsession with dinosaurs that manifested in endless dinner conversations about paleontology. Is that him? Victoria whispered from the seat beside Daniel. Back row, blue shirt. He looks like you. He looks like himself. The concert started. 20 second graders singing about spring with varying degrees of enthusiasm and pitch accuracy. Lucas saw Daniel and waved, grinned that gap-toothed smile that still melted every frustration. Daniel waved back. When the concert ended, Lucas ran over, hugged Daniel with the full-body commitment of someone who hadn't learned to be self-conscious yet. Did you see me? I remembered all the words. I saw. You were perfect. Hi, Miss Hale. Lucas had met Victoria twice before. Once, at a company picnic Daniel had reluctantly attended. Once, when she'd stopped by their apartment with materials for his school project. Did you like the concert? I loved it, Victoria said. And meant it. They walked out together. The spring afternoon was warm, bright. Lucas chattered about the concert, about his friend Emma who'd forgotten her lines, about the cookies his teacher had promised afterward. Ice cream? Daniel suggested. Yes. Lucas pumped his fist. Victoria checked her watch. No, Daniel's voice was firm. You scheduled the afternoon off. There are 15 people at Aurora who can handle whatever comes up. Come get ice cream. She hesitated, then nodded. They walked to the shop 3 blocks over. The one with the homemade waffle cones and the absurd number of flavors. Lucas debated his choice with the seriousness of a Supreme Court decision, eventually settled on chocolate chip cookie dough. They sat outside at a metal table. Lucas immediately got ice cream on his shirt. Daniel wiped it off with a napkin, while listening to Lucas explain the difference between Brachiosaurus and Brontosaurus. Victoria watched them, something in her expression soft, distant. You okay? Daniel asked when Lucas ran off to throw away his napkin. I'm trying to remember, Victoria said quietly. If my father ever took me for ice cream after a school event, I don't think he did. He was always working. Did you resent him for it? I thought I did, but really I just missed him. She looked at Daniel. You're a good father. I'm a present father. That's all it takes. Lucas came back. Can I go to Tommy's house? His mom said I could play until dinner. Daniel checked his phone. Message from Rachel Morgan. Lucas is welcome any time. Sure, buddy. I'll pick you up at 6. Lucas hugged him. ran off toward the Morgan apartment with the boundless energy of a 7-year-old who discovered the joy of independent plans. Daniel and Victoria sat in silence for a moment. "I have something to tell you," Victoria said. "Okay, I'm stepping back, not completely. But I'm promoting Marcus Chen to COO. He'll handle day-to-day operations. I'll focus on strategy and growth." She stirred her melted ice cream with a plastic spoon. "I'm also buying a cabin in Vermont, planning to spend long weekends there. Learn to paint. Maybe get a dog." Daniel smiled. "That's good. It's terrifying. That's how you know it's right." Victoria looked at him. "I never thanked you properly. For what you did. For what you said that day. For taking the risk of coming back. You're thanking me by changing. That's enough, is it? I destroyed people for years. Built a culture that valued output over humanity. One shift in policy doesn't erase that. No, but it's a start." Daniel finished his ice cream. "You can't undo the past. None of us can. You can only do better going forward." "Is that what you tell yourself? About Lucas's mother?" Daniel went still. They'd never discussed it explicitly. The absence that shaped his entire life. "Sometimes," he admitted. "She left when he was 2. Decided motherhood wasn't what she wanted. I was angry for a long time. Angry she abandoned him. Angry she made me a single parent. Angry at every family discount and school form that assumed 2 parents. But Lucas doesn't remember her. The only loss he feels is the one I create by being bitter about it. So I choose to focus on what we have, not what we lost." He looked at Victoria. "You can't fix your relationship with your father. He's gone. But you can make sure the people in your life now, your employees, your friends, whoever you build relationships with, experience something different." Victoria nodded slowly. "Aurora Group is doing better. Retention is up 30%. Productivity hasn't dropped despite reduced hours. Employee satisfaction scores are the highest they've been in company history. See? Turns out treating people like people works. Who knew?" She smiled. Actually smiled. Not the practiced version from magazine covers. Something real. They stood. Walked back toward the subway station. The city moved around them in its usual chaos of ambition and survival. "Daniel?" Victoria stopped at the station entrance. "Yeah? That sentence you said. About knowing your worth, about not losing your son." She paused. "That changed my life. I want you to know that." "I know, because you're getting ice cream on a Friday afternoon instead of sitting in your office." He squeezed her shoulder briefly. "That's how change works, one decision at a time." They separated at the platform. Victoria heading uptown to her apartment. Daniel heading back to Queens to pick up Lucas in an hour. He rode the train thinking about trajectories. How a single moment, a sentence, a choice, a stand for something important could redirect everything that came after. He'd been fired for choosing his son, and that choice had changed not just his life, but dozens of lives, hundreds, maybe. All the people at Aurora Group who now went home for dinner, who took their kids to concerts, who had permission to be human. His phone buzzed. Text from Lucas via Rachel's phone. "I'm having fun. Love you, Dad," Daniel typed back. The train rattled through the tunnel. Above ground, the city prepared for weekend. People leaving offices, heading home. Making the 1,000 small choices that accumulated into a life. Daniel thought about Victoria learning to paint in Vermont. About the employees who would benefit from her transformation. About Lucas growing up with a father who was there. He thought about worth. Not the kind measured in salaries or titles, but the kind you carry inside. The kind no one can fire you from. The train emerged into sunlight. Daniel looked out the window at the buildings rushing past, each one full of people trying to figure out the same puzzle. What matters? What lasts? What's worth choosing when everything else falls away? He knew his answer. He'd known it all along. 5 years later, Aurora Group published a case study that became required reading in business schools. It documented the transformation from pressure cooker culture to sustainable excellence. Charts, graphs, quantitative evidence. But professors always highlighted one part. The shift began with a single conversation. An employee who refused to compromise his values. A CEO willing to examine her assumptions. Recognition that true strength isn't about working longest, it's about living best. Daniel never read it. He was too busy. Not with work. Though he'd been promoted twice. Busy with Lucas's robotics competitions. Coaching Little League. The garden in their new apartment's community plot. Dinners at Victoria's cabin, where she'd learned to paint landscapes that weren't terrible. The life he'd chosen and kept choosing. One Saturday, he took Lucas to the park. They threw a football while joggers circled and dogs chased each other. "Dad," Lucas called, "can I ask something?" "Always." "Was it hard?" "When you lost your job?" Mom said. He caught the ball. "She said you got fired for being a good dad." Rachel had been talking. "Yeah," Daniel said. "It was hard. But you'd do it again?" "Without question." Daniel walked over. 12 years old now, almost as tall as his shoulder, growing into someone remarkable. "Because being your dad is the most important thing I'll ever do," Daniel said. "And nothing, no job, no money, no success is worth missing that." Lucas smiled, that grin, now with permanent teeth. "Thanks, Dad." "For what?" "For picking me." Daniel pulled him into a hug. "Every single time, buddy. Every single time." They went back to throwing. Morning sunlight filtered through trees. Somewhere, Victoria was painting. Marcus ran Aurora Group. Thousands of employees lived better lives because one person had been calm when it mattered. But Daniel thought about this moment. This morning. All the moments he'd been present for. All the ones he'd never get back if he'd made different choices. Worth. About knowing what matters. About wealth that can't be fired, can't be lost, can't be taken. The kind you carry in your heart. The kind called being chosen. The kind called home.